Hey YouTubers and YouTubettes. So I noticed that my subscriptions have picked up considerably lately, and first off I'd like to say thank you and welcome to my channel to all of those who have recently subscribed. I do appreciate the support. I'd like to do something today for those of you who are new to the channel, and for those of you who may have just recently joined. Kind of do a little history or tour of all of my fish tanks. Kind of explain about each one and how they came about. And with that, I'd like to start with the first tank that started it all, which would be this 55-gallon show tank. This tank was purchased back in 1990 something, maybe 91, 92, somewhere in there. I was working at one of the local fish stores. Decided that I was going to get into the aquarium hobby, and became the head of the fish room and started doing setups for people outside. So I decided to set my own tank up. It was basically just a fish only tank to start with. I did try very unsuccessfully a couple of times to do the planet tank. But without YouTube and the internet back then, all we had to go on was books, and the books weren't very good either, so not much information back then, and I ended up buying a lot of plants and watching them die, needless to say. After that time, I went into kind of a remission where I was working a pretty steady job and didn't really have time for the hobby, so the tank sat empty in my room for quite a few years. Well, about 3 years ago, I decided that I needed to either break it down, clean it up, and sell it, or break it down, clean it up, and set it back up and do something with it. Well, obviously I chose the latter of the two, and I slowly built from there. And if you want to see the chronological aspects of how this tank came about, you could just go back to the beginning of my videos on this channel, and it'll show you what it looked like when it started out and all the way through, and how I got it to where it is now. But that would be the 55-gallon. The next tank that I got involved with was a 10-gallon that a friend of mine was cleaning out his garage and going to throw away. So I ended up picking it up, and it became my guppy / shrimp tank. And why don't we take you down there to have a look at that right now. Okay, so here is the shrimp and guppy tank. You see a couple of guppies swimming around in there, and if you look around, you can see a lot of shrimp. There are quite a few red cherry shrimp that preside in this little tank here, which is very, very overgrown, and also very, very in bad need of cleaning and trimming and everything else. Really need to do something with this tank. But that would be the shrimp and guppy tank. This tank, which is a 10-gallon, was initially set up as a native tank. I thought I was going to do a little project where I was just going to go locally and find some local aquatic plants and some fish out of some stream locally, and put them all in this tank and make like a little native South Carolina, upstate South Carolina tank. And that's what the initial plan was, at least. I did go as far as to finding some local fish, and Bubba, back there, if you can see him, hiding back in the back, is the sole remainder of the babies that I found in one of the local streams. There was 4 of them initially. 2 of them died off relatively early, didn't survive. And the other 2 actually did pretty well, and they were in this tank for quite a while. But Bubba tended to grow a little bit quicker than the other one, and he picked on the other fish to the point that, well, I just noticed the other fish wasn't there one day and never did find a carcass or anything, so I think he picked on the fish and then just ate it. At any rate, Bubba's been living in there for the last year or so, and he's kind of master of his tank. Plants in there are just trimmings and cast-offs and stuff from my tank. I never did get around to actually going out and finding any local plants, local aquatic plants. So these are just little bits and pieces of extras that came from the other tanks, just to give him something to give him a little cover. So that's the history of that 10-gallon, and shall we move on? Okay, so I got the other tanks well under tow and got them all planted up, and this is about the time that Petco came out with their $1 a gallon sale on tanks. So obviously I immediately jumped on it and ran down and got myself a 20 long. The great thing about a 20 long and also a 40 breeder, which as a matter of fact the next $1 a gallon sale I will be picking up a 40 breeder, is that they're long tanks and they're shallow tanks. And when I say shallow, I mean it as far as from top to bottom, which is great for a planted tank. I just doesn't take much light. This tank in itself is lit by 2 LED floodlights that you can find on eBay for, well, relatively cheap. These are the 20-watt models, and 65K, and they grow everything in here fantastically. So you can, for a relatively low price, especially if you get the $1 a gallon for the tank, and say about $30 for the 2 lights. I think they were about $10-15 a piece, something like that. You know, a little over $50 and stuff. All you got to get is the substrate and the plants and the fish and the water, and you're good to go. But this tank now is, I'm not sure exactly what's going on with it, but it has definitely got the romance mojo on it, because this is the breeding tank. This is what it has now become. Although it's beautifully planted, as you can see, Daddy is in there hanging around, and Mama is right around the corner here, and her babies are, you probably can't see them, but they're down in there, and it's a new batch. They just came out and became free swimming like yesterday. So I got a new batch of Apistos, Cockatoides, double reds, that Mama and Daddy will be raising up, and they are fantastic parents. And over here, my little Buenos Aires, he and his mate have had a couple of babies in their own, and which leads us to the next tank, which I'm only going to briefly talk about, which is a 5-gallon. The 5-gallon was a quarantine slash grow out slash hospital tank slash whenever I needed an extra tank, if I had a fish that was getting too brutal or whatever, you know, the 5-gallon became the tank to go to. And for quite a while it was the tank to go to, but now that I've got all these babies coming in, I decided that the 5 was getting a little bit too small to have a bunch of babies running around in. So 5-gallon has been relegated down underneath the stand of the 55-gallon, and it is now exclusively either a quarantine or a hospital tank. It is not going to be used for anything else, so I figured that would be a good place for it to live, because when they're in quarantine or in under medication or whatever, with the cabinet door here closed and stuff, they don't see as much commotion. It's calmer, quieter, and easier for them to get their sleep or rest or get their medicine or whatever and take care of it. As you can see, there's still a blue tint in there from where I just treated a couple of my neons for ick, and that's the methylene blue tint. I still need to drain that out and put some fresh water in it. But getting down to the final tanks, and that would be this 10, which was just set up maybe a month ago, which took place of the 5. The 5 used to be sitting out here, and it is now the grow out tank, and that's kind of where I was going to stand at that point. But then I realized that I had different levels of apistos in here, and as you can see, you see some males and females that are rather large, and then if you look down below you could see a second brood that are smaller, and with the third brood over here, in a couple of weeks they'll be moving over into here, and you know, it's getting kind of congested in there, so I decided it was once again time to bring up another tank so that I could have 2 grow out tanks, one for the older and larger fish and one for the smaller and newer fish. And I also decided to even incorporate this guy, which is basic simple breeding net, and it has the you know, little suction cups on the sides, or on the back I should say. And what I'll be doing is probably putting that in this 10-gallon. So the youngest fish will be transferred into it initially, and then when they grow out enough they can be released into the main tank with the next brood up that is a little bit larger. That way I don't have to worry about any of them picking on each other, or the smaller ones. And the largest of the large that hadn't been sold will be moved over to that tank over there, which is another 10-gallon, which will be the final grow out for the apistos. So that pretty much sums up the tanks in the fish room. Well, fish rooms, they kind of spread out. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I hope it didn't bore you to death. Thanks for watching, and once again, thank you everyone who has subscribed to me recently. I do appreciate the support, and we will talk to you soon. This is my little 4-gallon Aquarium Evolve tank that I won at a raffle from my local fish club, which is the South Carolina Aquatics Association. Right now it's got a little sword plant in the back, some rickia growing up off of a piece of lava rock, a little bit of I can't think of the name of it. Blixa growing in the back, and there's 3 little celestial danios swimming around in here. I did try to get some red or orange shrimp in here. I had them in here for about 2 weeks and they all died off. Unfortunately, I attempted that right after I set the tank up and it hadn't fully cycled. So I might eventually end up, as a matter of fact, I know that eventually I'm going to add shrimp in here again. Maybe I'll try some blues or carbon rillies or something like that. At any rate, there's the little 4-gallon. That sits on my desk.